Yo, hopefully y'all can hear me correctly. I'm gonna give y'all a minute to hop on if y'all need to. Plus, I'm gonna try to post this on Twitter just in case anybody's interested. And then we can get this started. All right, what's up, Caleb? All right. Well, I guess we're good now. All right. So, today I'm here to talk about essentially my hangups with type. This is not to say that I am planning to stop making any typology videos or anything like that. It's literally just pretty much like a venting thing. It's like it's like when you first get into type, then it's like, whoa, this is the best thing ever, and you're just like learning about all this different stuff. And then you get to a point where it's like, and I have like 2 videos on this, where I'm talking about like transcending type. And even then, I've always essentially been the type of person, like, I mean, y'all can see from my channel, like I'm focused on so much more than just personality typology. Like I've always known that if I just, somebody even commented on one of my videos a few years ago, like, I would subscribe if you only made like typology videos, but because, you like, sometimes I put out like spoken word poetry. Sometimes I'm talking about like theology and stuff like that. There's other times where I'm just like musing about like other things. Like one of my most recent videos was just on intellectual dishonesty. Has nothing to do with type. I can relate it to type, talking about TI and all of that. But at the end of the day, it's like, no, these are just things I like to think about. And that's what I wanted to do on YouTube to begin with. Like all I wanted to do, well, the reason why I made my channel, well, first of all, was I was putting the videos from my phone that were taking up space, I was putting them on here on YouTube just to like, get rid of that space. Like that was like back when there was like 8 GB phones and stuff like that. And then I was able to go up to 32 gigabytes, and even that was still just not enough or whatever. So yeah, like there's like old stuff there that's just like, But then I started actually using YouTube to just talk about the things that the people in my real life were not really as interested in talking about. And so it's like, you know what? Here's a medium where I can expel these thoughts and I can invite people to come and listen and engage. And keyword invitation. They're not forced to. I never forced anybody to subscribe. I've never been the type of person even to go out and like, like one time I ran into somebody who literally like was giving everybody their cards and stuff like that, and like watching them like subscribe to his channel, stuff like that. So anyway, all that to say that I've just always been the type of person that like, yeah, I'm interested in type for sure. And I made it like, my career, my goal. But there's definitely hangups when it comes to it. And I feel like one of the biggest hangups that I'm going to start with is, and this might be a video in and of itself, depending on how this discussion goes or this spiel, whatever happens over here, is the domino effect of mistypes. Now, I'm not, once again, obviously the type of person to hop on YouTube and like those type police type of people. Like, sure, I'll have my thoughts about certain people, but I'll just keep them to myself for the most part because I'm not here to be like that person's not an INFJ or whatever it might be. That's just not my style. But uh, as someone who, I guess, like this is something I'm very passionate about, and I'm always like trying to like learn to like sharpen my sword when it comes to it, especially like as somebody who like profiles too. Like I do professional profiling, and so one huge thing that I've noticed is like, okay, your intuition can tell you one thing, but then sometimes you really gotta wait until you get the sensing and the thinking, there too, and like really like gauge everything, like all of the functions before like, oh shoot. So sometimes I can hop onto a profiling session and automatically I'm having an idea like, okay, I'm seeing this person's mannerisms, so their cadence and their speech. Oh, okay, cool. This person's an engineer. Okay, like, and I like already have like things firing up. Like, this is what type that person might be. But then you start going a little bit further into the profiling session. It's like, ooh, that's interesting. Interesting. I don't think that you're this type after all. Now that I've asked more questions and he started peering like past the surface, and really getting into the nitty gritty of the cognitive functions, which is a huge thing. Then when you're a profiler, like you just have to know all of the different facets of the functions. Like extroverted sensing is not just about uh, being in your body and like being good at sports and stuff like that. Like there's so many different facets to extroverted sensing. When I first put out my cognitive functions 101 and even 201 series, where I was talking about like I was like introducing people to these cognitive functions, that was like a few years ago. And now obviously I've like learned a lot more. I've experienced more people of these types. And I'm like, oh, and I'm seeing like more of the umbrella that it has underneath it and stuff like that. I'm like, got it. And so I'm seeing how a lot of these things are being confused for each other. So going back to what I said about the domino effect with these mistypes, you start to see stuff like it every time we see a very wise like ESFP, for example, all of a sudden you're like, oh shoot, no, that person can't be ESFP. They're too smart. That must be an ENFJ. And once again, it's like, okay, there's nothing against ESFPs, but it's just the simple fact of the matter is that that person with the charisma and saying, the intellect, whatever it might be, that's not an ENFJ. That's an ESFP. We need to give them the credit where credit is due. Because then what ends up happening is now you start getting a whole bunch of ESFPs who now start to think they're ENFJ. And then you see the ENFJs and they're like, ooh, that's not me. Because they're seeing an ESFP, but they think that it's an ENFJ. And they're seeing the descriptions that are based off of these ESFPs that are really not that are assumed to be an EFJ. So then the ENFJ starts to think, I think I'm actually INFJ. Then we got another problem because now the INFJs are like, they're looking at the ENFJs in the same way the ENFJs are looking at the ESFPs and like, that's not me, because now they're same things happening over there. So then the INFJs start to think, you know what? I think I'm an INTJ. Now the INTJs are looking at the INFJs. It's like, ooh, that's not me. And then you just have this like whole domino effect. I feel like when I look at things in the typology community, obviously people come from various like schools of thought, which is very important to know. Like, it's I think it's vital to know, like, okay, are we talking about socionic functions over here? And even then, like, what kind of model are we talking about? Are we talking about Jungian functions, like, like the original Jungian functions, where Carl Jung was talking about, oh, NE is like knowing the probability of what's going to happen when you roll dice, kind of thing, like stuff like that, where it's like, yeah, he was the father of all of this, but who says that we could not take that and then build upon that foundation? Are we going by OPs, where it's like, okay, really, Gary Vaynerchuk? Like, I don't know, guys. Um, and like just stuff like that, we have to know like what school of thought that we're coming from, because I feel like that's when we're able to really understand, like, okay, this is how you define the certain functions. And from knowing how you define the certain functions, from knowing how people are approaching or seeing certain types, then it's like, okay, this is why you think this. Like, for example, in socionics, there's a lot of people who believe that it's transferable. And I'm not here to like bash them or anything, but all I know for certain is that in the Myers-Briggs system, I am an ENFJ, no doubt. And in the socionics system, I am an IEE, which is technically ENFP. But it's not the same type of ENFP that's in Myers-Briggs, because there are ENFJs that are also EIEs in socionics. And then there are EIEs in socionics that are ENFPs in Myers-Briggs. And so it's like, clearly, somehow, I don't know how, it's not to say this is right or wrong, but the truth of the matter is there's some inconsistency here that we're seeing. And then people can get upset, like, well, the socionics one is right. Like, Myers-Briggs is right, because honestly, it don't even matter anymore, like which one's right, which one's wrong. The truth of the matter is just that we're speaking two different languages over here, and we have to make sure that we've communicated, like, hey, I'm coming from a socionic standpoint. Oh, okay, got you. I'm coming from a Myers-Briggs standpoint. And even then, when I say Myers-Briggs, what I really mean is OP. I'm talking about animals. I'm talking about, the masculine, feminine energies and stuff like that. Or I'm coming from a personality hacker standpoint, stuff like that. Once you really understand like these languages, it becomes so much easier to discuss things about like type. And then you can hash out certain things, but I feel like there's just a lot of like, there's so many stereotypes too that are just cast onto things. And that's why I bring up, like, I put up like a lot of like profiling sessions. I try to put up a profiling session video of real people, both people who already knew about type and they're coming in, and people who knew nothing about type, so that you can see the functions come into play and see me like actually ask these questions. Sometimes it's like, okay, I already know what type this person is, but let me continue to ask questions here just in case if I'm wrong, but also just to like further confirm, like, oh, right now I'm dealing with an ISTP. Let's see how strong this ISTP's intuition actually is, because this could probably be the reason why a lot of people confuse ISTPs for INTJs. Interesting. Let's see if, now that I have a real ISTP over here, let me ask him some questions that could be separating him from what an INTJ might look like. That way people can start looking, oh, you know, I really, I like, wow, but that, I really could have sworn that that guy was an INTJ because he reminds me so much of my INTJ father. Unless my father is really an ISTP. Boom. Now you see what we're doing here. Like, we're being more open to recalibrating and reconstructing. But yeah, there's just a lot of inconsistency that I'm seeing sometimes, like, in the type communities. Sometimes we try to even match what type that we think we are rather than having the type match us. So one day, somebody could be thinking like, "Oh, I'm an ESTP." Actually, let's put it like this. Somebody could be thinking like, I'm an INTJ. And it's like, yeah, I'm never in tune with my body and I'm never this. And they're answering questions in the way that they think that an INTJ should answer it rather than what's really true and resonating for them. Um, and it's like that's dishonest, whether it's intentional or unintentional. It's like, well, why are you trying to fix yourself into that? Like just answer just answer true about what you are, and then we'll figure that out. You know what I mean? Like, just because you're an ISFP that happens to maybe be organized does not mean that all of a sudden I'm going to be like, oh yeah, no, you're definitely a judger then. Like, no. It's like, oh shoot, like, it helps us have more nuance to what the type actually is, because again, like, this is not supposed to be boxing people in the sense that it's not supposed to like limit you, you know? It's supposed to, like, I like how Personality Hacker says your best fit type. So it's like, okay, if you identify as an ENTP, that doesn't mean that you will literally never use TE in your life. It doesn't mean that you're fated to being indecisive. It doesn't mean that you are never going to be able to have some consistency in your life, stuff like that. That's not what all of that means. It just means that you have preferences and affinity to using that function stack, NETIFESI. How do you use those functions? That's what separates you from other ENTPs. And that's also why you need to know like how these functions show about. So if you understand all of the different facets of NE, then you're not going to be like, oh, well, I can't possibly be an ENTP because I don't do this one thing from NE. Well, do you know the other things that NE does? Well, no, I'm not an ESTP because I don't really like going on roller coasters and doing stuff. It's like, okay, how are you like with science? Do you like looking at things for what it empirically is? How are you? Oh, I'm an INFJ because like I just like to read deep into things. Like, okay, well, in what way do you read deep into stuff? Because an ISFP also reads deep into things too, and they have tertiary NI. Shoot, ESFPs can sometimes read into things deeply, and they have SE as their dominant function, which is supposedly known to like not read deeply into things. You have to ask these types of questions. I feel like a lot of people don't really do that a lot. And then again, with inconsistency, it's like everybody knows the INFJ fanatic thing that we kind of like had, where it's like as soon as there's a character that seems smart and cool in some type of way and a little bit reserved and insightful, it's like, oh, INFJ. And it's like we need to give more credit to these other characters. Some people just don't know better, not in like a mean way, and not even me saying it in like an arrogant way kind of thing. I mean, I know what I know, as in like I look into it, I learn about it, and I try my best to continue to learn. So that's just how I feel. All of this is just my opinion. So what do I know? But I know what I know. And it's like, okay, let's take, for example, the show All American on Personality Database. It's like they typed the main character, Spencer, as INFJ. Not saying that INFJs are limited in this way, but when you watch the show, it's very evident, like even from the first episode, like Spencer is using SE at a very high level. Like he's the star football player. He's not even just a football player, he's a star football player of the team. Like, sure, SPs are not the only ones that can be star football players. Sure, like maybe an inferior SE person can be. Okay. But even with going by that, it seems like there's way more of an argument. There's so many more tallies to put for ISFP for Spencer, like the way that he goes about his values, the way that he gets himself into certain situations, but then he's able to pull himself out, stuff like that. Like but simply because he looks out for his friends, because that's one of his values. And it's like, oh, this person must have FE. And then sometimes Spencer has these moments where it's like he can detect when something's wrong with his friend. Oh yeah, so he has to be INFJ or intuitive or something. It's like, no, again, if you pay close enough attention, this man is ISFP, but our idea of how ISFPs look like is probably like warped because we have a very limited view of that. We just see them as like Michael Jackson and that's it, or stuff like that. Um, and maybe even like another example. I'm thinking of a more popular show, You, where it's like personally, I've seen so many takes on Joe. He's a very interesting character. My personal take on him is that he's an ISTP. I think that the things that we're seeing from him that, I can understand why people would think of him as a feeler because he's romantic. But I feel like it's just because he's a sexual five, and that's what actually defines most of his character. Um, he's fixated, like the sexual five is like fixated on this ideal perfect partner. And it's almost to the point where it's like once they finally get that partner, then all of a sudden it's like, oh, now they're looking on to like the next thing. Cause it's almost like they're addicted to that ideal. By the way, I'm talking about Enneagram over here when I say like sexual five, which is the counter type of the five. So I believe that Joe from You is a sexual five, and that's why he seems the way that he does, like in the romantic sense. But then when you're looking at his actual cognition and like the stuff that he says, the stuff that he does, it's like once again, kind of like with Spencer, it's like, okay, really, guys, we think that he's INFJ? The man gets himself into so many situations. Sure, he's smart, but INFJs are not the only smart types out there. Intuitives are not even the only smart types out there. You have to give sensors way more credit. As a matter of fact, what kind of INFJ would be able to, first of all, like I said, this man gets himself into trouble, but look at how quickly he's able to shift and get himself out of trouble. Like that's some SE up there, you know? And it's like, how hard do we really think about the I'm not even saying that like I have all of the answers here. I'm just saying that it's just, I guess, and this is to be expected, but it's kind of like just annoying that there's so many different answers that we have for certain things. And of course, me being FETI, it's like I just want everybody to be on the same page. like like I don't even care if I'm wrong. I just want to have the right answer, if there is one. The best fit answer. And I don't want to go off of like dumb stuff. Like, oh, this person's insightful. INTJ. What? Like, no, like like when we look at Joe, then people think, I think that people type him mainly as INFJ, which like makes sense. Like it's not like stupid, quote unquote. And I'd never want to disrespect people in that way. Like I get it, like especially if ISTPs and INFJs, like they share the same functions. But to me, it's like, okay, no, it's not an NITI thing that he's got going on. Technically, it's a TINI thing that he's got going on. Like his NI tertiary comes in to help his auxiliary SE to be able to get himself out of the situations that he gets himself into. And even though he's romantic, he's not a feeler. He's using TI all the way. And then his inferior FE comes into play too, with like how he goes about things and everything like that. But once again, he seems like a romantic, which then also makes people think like, oh, he's an INFP, and it's like, really, I don't personally not, I don't really know. This man is he's a thinker. Um, so yeah, and then Love from that show. It's like I've been seeing, and I'm not even just saying this because I'm an ENFJ. Like I'm not like salty about it in that way, but it's just like when you hear these takes, it's like, well, then no wonder like you can't even really like trust people when they're like they'll comment on my videos like, well, my ENFJ auntie is like this and boom boom. It's like, well, Do you think that Love is an ENFJ by any chance? Yeah. Okay. That makes sense. In that case, your auntie is probably not an ENFJ. Maybe she is. I don't know your auntie. But I'm way less likely to actually believe what you've typed the person in your real life now because of how you've typed this fictional character that we are all observing. So we all have been given the same information and we come to these different conclusions. And it's like, that sucks that, again, like there's not really like a right answer. Um, but I kind of wish that there was. And that's pretty much what this whole thing about, like what I dislike about typology is. It's like, I wish that there were more right answers so that we could actually be like, okay, this is just what it is. Does everybody agree that Kevin Hart is ESFP? And we can give the TI reasoning for it. Like, this is why, boom, boom, boom. We can present cases for him being an ENFP or ENFJ, whatever else you might think. But at the end of the day, it's like, but this is the best fit type, and this is probably why. And can we all agree kind of like that this is the right answer? Which, once again, it's very hard to do in the typology community. There's just different opinions coming on like everywhere, and then we all think that we're right, including myself. So I get it. I get it. This is a very like ironic video. That's why I preface this by saying this is just my opinion. It's just a rant that you guys are here to witness. And make of it whatever you think. But yeah, just also to go back on what I said about Love from you, I highly, highly doubt that she's an ENFJ. And the takes that I've been seeing is like, yeah, because her FESE causes guys, even when you're looping like that, your auxiliary function is not that invisible. Like to the point where you're making those big of mistakes. Like no, I think that the like sure we could give an argument for Love being ENFJ, but maybe she's just a perceiver. So it's not even that she's necessarily looping, but she's just an EP. And that's why. And that's what I think. I think that she's an EXFP. Personally, I'm not entirely sure if ENFP or ESFP. That I'm open to debate, to discuss, whatever. I don't have like a strong thing. I'd even take ISFP as a third option if she's not one of the top two. But I personally think that she is. Like one of the reasons why I would even go away from ISFP. Like I was already like leaning off of ISFP when somebody presented it to me, but then especially when Joe and Love were in therapy, and Love was pretty much like she was learning FI like in therapy, like or she was like enhancing it more, like she was developing her FI auxiliary function. And I feel like that's more of an indication that like FI is not her dominant function, but it was still it's still there enough. Like I think that she's more of like a tertiary TE kind of girl who just goes to get what she needs to get done. And it's not like she's like influencing all of these like relationships that she has with people. She's just really focused on her one relationship with Joe, pretty much. So and I feel like that's a very like honed in FI kind of thing too. And I don't care like how FESE and ENFJ can be, in my opinion. Like they're not going to be that short-sighted. So I feel like that's just a really big thing there. And Joe, once again, it makes sense that he having tertiary NI, in my opinion, is more of a long-term thinker than Love is, who might have inferior NI. But Love is still able to like move on a dime or whatever. So and she's able to detect things. So yeah, that's what I'm thinking over there. I think my last one that I'll throw on there before like I look at the comments and start just seeing whatever you guys want to talk about. So y'all can go ahead and drop questions, not just about whatever I'm ranting about, but like anything at all. Like if like, oh, what type do you think this person is? Why? This character, why? Like whatever you guys want to ask. Like I'm gonna try to be doing some more live streams every now and then, just to connect with whoever is available. But I'm gonna have a rant ready first, so that if by any chance nobody is available, during those live streams, and it's like, all right, I didn't hop on live for no reason. Y'all have a rant to watch post stream. So yeah, the last person I'm gonna talk about, or last two people in the same show, is for those of you who have watched Death Note. I've been meaning to make a video about this, and it's like I have all of the screenshots from the show. I've even like done a few like screen recordings, kind of like what I did with the ENFJ Tanjiro video and the Professor Xavier video. Um, but to be honest, I guess I've just kind of been like lazy, and I've been afraid of like copyright stuff. Like they got me with the Tanjiro video, and so I had to like do some stuff, and I was like, this video could have been so much better if they just let me put these things in there. And I got a strike for it, and I was like, okay. And then for the Professor Xavier video, I tried to be more careful, still didn't really work. So I'm like, I gotta really be careful with these. And then I also start to wonder, like, what's the point of this? Like, is this even something that I really need to like argue and debate? But all that being said, I think that Light Yagami is not an INTJ. I think that he's an ENTJ. And I think that when we really watch and we allow ourselves to broaden our perspectives of how ENTJs look like in real life, there's a spectrum. You know, I mean, I have my slumber party video coming out, the ENFJ slumber party video. You'll see the spectrum of Kinsey, who says it in the video herself. Like, I'm a very boisterous, like top of the charts extroverted ENFJ. And then you'll see someone like Stephanie, who's like probably on the opposite extreme. And they're still both underneath that spectrum, but it's like, okay, they're still certainly using the same function stack. Stephanie is not leading with NI. Yes, she's a lot more reserved than Kinsey is and everything like that. But when you really get to know her, when you really get to speak to her, she's definitely still an FE dominant. She's just using her FE dominant function in a different manner than Kinsey might. And we have to be aware, once again, of these facets and these nuances. Oprah Winfrey and Martin Luther King Jr. were not using, like, they're using the same exact function stack, which, you know, I know people think that Martin Luther King Jr. is INFJ. I don't. I think he's an ENFJ as well. Same with Nelson Mandela, especially even from watching the movie, like Nelson Mandela's movie. It's like, this man. Anyway, Light Yagami. I think that he's an ENTJ. And I know that it's really easy, very easy to type L from Death Note as INTP. Very easy to. I don't necessarily blame people for typing that. He looks like the stereotypical INTP, like the way that he's a kind of like awkward. No offense to the INTPs that are watching, you know, love and respect. But yeah, like, you know, the way that he kind of like just awkward and aloof in that way. But when you really pay attention to the way that this man thinks, I feel like we're actually watching an ENTJ and an INTJ at play. Like the whole show Death Note is just a whole chess game between two NTJs. An NI Dom one who's anticipating the TE Dom. And the TE Dom is even the one that will like when they're like short things, like even when they were having the tennis match, like Light was like, okay, you know, like they see each other as like worthy adversaries. And then Light Yagami is like, interesting. You know, you're really good and I hate to lose just as you hate to lose. But I know that, you know, with certain things like this, you can't just defend. You have to also attack. That seems very TESE to me. Whereas like L, he being an INTJ, he's less likely to just have more of like that forceful thing. Now, yes, Light Yagami was not that extroverted. He was not that much of a commander that, you know, that we see online and everything like that. But once again, the spectrum, there are ENTJs who are more like, you know, of the big CEO types that are very bossy and all of that. But there are also a lot of ENTJs, a lot of them, probably even most of them, to be honest, that don't really want to associate with many people. And they're just about focusing on doing their work, excelling in class, like Light Yagami was doing. And focusing on whatever it is that they have to do to get done, because that's what TE is about. TE is about putting things into the external world, getting things in motion, getting things effectively done. And I think that light was using TE as a dominant function, and then his NI was supporting it very heavily. So he still had very strong NI, just like L still had very strong TE. So they were both really good opponents for each other. And they were able to go toe to toe in that way. I don't think that L was an INTP when you really look at like not just like his behavior, but like his actual way of like thinking. I think that once you really look at that, it's like, oh no, this guy is using NITE, and Light is using TENI. Uh, and even with Light Yagami, to say it even more, it's like his FI was inferior. Like he had this like very limited perspective of right and wrong. And I also believe that he was an Enneagram sexual one. So he had this like very strong like view of like how things should go, how things should be run in the world and everything, of justice and stuff like that. And his lack of nuance and morality like kept him from seeing where the irony of it all was like he was doing wrong too. And so yeah, but on top of like, his inferior FI. So anyway, yeah, I feel like these stereotypes that we have, unfortunately, they are doing us more harm than good. And I just wish that we would take more time to try to get on the same page. Like, let's discuss what, like, pretty much like going back to the basics. What do you think are the facets of each function? Let's get back to our schools of thoughts. Let's try to like get back on the right page. Why are you seeing NE for this person? Oh, because you have this notion that NE is the only one that can like, I guess, like bounce from idea to idea in this way. Okay, that makes sense. Why do you think that this like you have to like know the reasoning so that we can there's a word that I'm looking for, root out the bad information and get cleaner data, cleaner ways of how we actually, like, what we actually think about these functions and stuff like that. And then we can probably also stop boxing people. Like, oh, you're an ENTP, so you're just fated to being a dick. No, that's definitely not true. I know some really kind ENTPs. Grow up. Like, oh, you're an ENTJ, so you don't know how to deliver things kindly. Definitely not true. You can definitely learn how to do that. Oh, you're an ISFJ, so there's no way that you could ever be deep. Definitely also not true. Yeah, we have to get rid of these stereotypes while at the same time also not going too far. And like there's still like, just because now you see somebody that's deep, it's like, well, ISFJs can be deep too. It's like, yeah, but that's still just not an ISFJ. Like that's that. Yeah. Hopefully that made sense so far. Kind of just like threw all of this out here, just because once again it's just been on my mind and stuff like that. But let's see what we got here. Totally, Reddit is a great place to see this problem. Yeah, seriously. Oh man, Reddit is even worse than Twitter. I spend most of my time on Twitter, and I feel like on Twitter, a lot of people know what they're talking about, at least. Like, I actually really like and trust the type community there. We still don't always agree, but I can at least like respect what their opinions are. And I can see like, okay, this is where they're coming from. They're well educated. And a lot of them are open up to discussion and stuff like that. And I'm always trying to make sure that I'm not the one seeing things wrong too. Because the last thing that I want to be is the person who is just seeing things correct, like in his own eyes, like how it's supposed to be, like how he thinks it's supposed to be. You know what I mean? So I get how like there's a little FETI polarity thing there. Like the FE in me like just wants to like look at everybody else's perspectives and not really, and like kind of like neglect mine. But my inferior TI, even though it's inferior, it's like, okay, well, this is like one of the few things that I've really extensively dove into. And I actually will admit that I know what I'm talking about here. Does that mean that I'm always right? No. But because I've invested so much energy here, I need to give myself a little bit more credit. And I can definitely give you reasoning as to why I think boom, 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 boom. But yeah, on Reddit, Reddit personality database. Oh man, like we're still using dichotomies out here, guys. Come on, like come on, come on. Uh, I'm always skeptical when someone uses too many buzzwords about their own type. Oh yeah, that's that's also huge. That's also huge. Like there's a lot of buzzwords that just go around for like each type, and we're still seeing so many like clickbaity type of videos out there. Like I'll see stuff uh and I don't I love INFJs. They're like actually my favorite type, like right there with the ISFP. So I whenever I'm speaking about this, I'm not necessarily speaking about INFJs per se. I'm speaking about what other people view about them. And so stuff like I didn't even watch the video yet. I want to just so I can like laugh at it and just roll my eyes. But I saw a video that came out just a few days ago that's like 6 things that only INFJs will understand. And I'm like, I'm really curious to see like how much of this was really just them being clickbaity versus how much of this like this person's really convinced that only INFJs will understand this. Like I can't even do that for ENFJ videos. Like, oh yeah, these are 5 things that only ENFJs will understand. So I don't what? We're as long as we're human, there's gonna be a lot of like types overlap, you know? So yeah, the buzzwords, even for functions, it's like, oh, you care about other people's feelings, you have to be FE. No, there are FI users who are like this too. Oh, you know, you're authentic, so you have to be FI. No, there are FE users who are like this too. I would like to think of myself as a very authentic person. I'm not about to come in on here and present to you guys something that's not true. So yeah, personality database is funny. Basically, it's likable, NF, smart, NT, boring, SJ, dumber, likable equals SP. It's funny. Yeah, yeah. That's pretty much like what it is. Like they get so many things wrong on there, and it's just interesting to me. And of course, once again, I understand that it's wrong by my own opinion. I get that, but yeah, I mean that's the best I can say. It's like it's still wrong. Like, and I could present things for it. It's like if I'm not sure about something, I'm not going to speak on it. You know, like I'm gonna try. I'm gonna present it like, this is just my opinion right now, but you know, I'm open to being wrong, whatever. But it's like Spencer is not an INFJ. Like watch episode 1, and you will see that this guy is not inferior SE. Yes, he's a passionate guy. Yes, he's insightful. He's able to like detect when somebody is having a bad day, but that's not something that only intuitive types and NFs can do. Give these types more credit, man. Really don't he use, okay, I think you're talking about Joe. Really don't he use FE quite often when he's talking and manipulating people? He never seems to have issues in that an area like an inferior FE user would. Yes. And I like that you brought this point up. So he is using FE because yes, it still is inferior function. Just like me, I'm an ENFJ. I'm not the best with TI. I'm not tooting my own horn out here. But I feel like when you watch my YouTube videos, you can still very evidently see the TI, the syllogism that I'm putting in a lot of my reasoning, a lot of my thoughts and stuff like that. So your inferior function is always still going to be showing pretty clearly, especially if like you're developed. I believe that he is an example of a very developed ISTP, but he's still unhealthy too. So you can still be unhealthy and develop because he's just using his functions in like a different way. I think that Jim Jones and even what's his name? Ted Bundy. First of all, they were both psychopaths. We know, crazy people. They were unhealthy people. They were both unhealthy people for sure, but they were developed people, and I believe they were ENFJs. Uh, they were developed in that sense because they were using their functions on a very highly operating level, but they were unhealthy. So they're using it, and they were using those functions like in an unhealthy manner, which is different from in an unhealthy way. I hope that makes sense. So all that to say that, like, yeah, I think that Joe, yeah, he's still using his FE inferior, but it's not like FE is not is not just about manipulating people. That's another one of those things. Oh, this person's manipulating. That means that they have to be an NFJ. It's like, no, so many there are a lot of FI manipulators out there. Like, not even just in real life, but like in shows too. Like like manipulation is not just something that an FE user holds monopoly on. And so I think that Joe, yes, he's using his FE and he uses like to manipulate and stuff like that. But once again, like when you really like look at him, he's definitely leaning way more on TI. Like when I listen to him, what I'm seeing over and over is TINI, not NITI, but TINI. And then I see his SE come out really quickly too. Like this man, it's like, to me, it's more like there's no way that he's an SE inferior. The way that he's able to finesse, like, first of all, he doesn't think long term enough to be able to, like, because he still falls into problems because he's a perceiver, But where you've been cursed, you've also been blessed. So perceivers, they get themselves into trouble, but they get themselves right out. So he was able to get himself into that trouble, but then he has enough SE to be able to get himself out of it. Whereas, like, I think if he were an INFJ, if he got himself into those problems, he would not be able to get himself out, which is why INFJs just tend not to get themselves into those problems because they thought long and hard enough. So then they don't have to be in that situation where they have to rely on their inferior function. And yeah, I feel like also, of course, like, he's a fictional character. So to an extent, it's like, how much does he really like an ISTP? Like an ISTP is still capable of understanding people. I think that Luther from the show Luther, if you guys ever want, you can watch it on Hulu, I think. It's played by Idris Elba, who I also believe is an ISTP. The person that he's playing, Luther, is also an ISTP, in my opinion. Really understands people as well. Gets in their heads, all of that. People, I think, type him as INFJ or INTJ online. And I'm like, I can see why you guys think that he's intuitive, but look at how he goes about things. He has higher SE. We have to give these SE, like higher stacked SE users, credit. And so I think that, yeah, I think that that's a big thing to consider. But then you see the FE hangups throughout the show, both Luther and Arrow, another ISTP, in my opinion. Granted, I know they did a whole like weird thing with him in the beginning where he was like more of like a party boy and stuff like that. And that's just one of those things I feel like the show is like weird. It's kind of like with Maleficent. I believe that in reality, she would be an ENFJ that through trauma and all of this stuff, now she presented as an INTJ. But again, because of fictional stuff, then it's like, you know what? It's just best to just say she's an INTJ and don't get into the technicalities, because that's how she best presents, So in the same sense, my roommate's daughter is playing and she just made my my train of thought derail. Maleficent. I brought up Maleficent for a reason. Well, I feel like it's right there, but I don't feel like thinking about it anymore. Y'all probably got the point. I beat a dead horse over there. All that to say, yes, I believe that Joe is an ISTP, and yes, he's using FE as an inferior function, but yeah. Oh, that's what I was saying. And Arrow, he's most likely, like, he presented as an ESFP or maybe ESTP in the beginning of the show, but then throughout the whole rest of the show, he's actually operating as like a picture perfect ISTP. And so it's like, it's best for the sake of understanding the ISTP to just like say like he's an ISTP, because he wasn't ever really intended to be an ESFP. They just put that at the beginning of the show. Like when shows and movies do that, the writers, they just did that to kind of like show like like a contrast of some sort. They're not really like, but the character's main character or personality was supposed to always be what you see throughout the whole rest of the show. So that's what I think when it comes to fiction, we should lean on. Hope that makes sense. Yes, thank you. Looping is a frustrating term in our community because people use it to dismiss functions they can't explain. Ah, yes, that is. Yes, looping is real. I'm a coach. I see people do this, but people don't loop to the extent that all of a sudden it's like, yeah, I just don't see. Like for me, if I can't see your auxiliary function, then I'm not really comfortable being able to pin that on you. You know what I'm saying? One good example could be The Rock. Stereotypically, I have always saw The Rock as an ESTP. Just stereotypes. Like, oh yeah, this man just he's probably the most brolic man in the world. You know what I'm saying? And like, yeah, and it's like clearly he has like FE, the way that he smiles. I don't know. It was a stereotype. And then I started watching his actual interviews and stuff like that. And I'm like, okay, it's not that ESTPs can't be nice. But this man is like really nice. Like in a way that I feel like is just really not even natural for ESTPs to be like. Like he seems to have like a very strong FE dominant function there. So it's like, okay. So of course, by nature, one could start to assume like, okay, maybe he's an ENFJ because he has to have SE, right? He has to have SE, like he's so strong and stuff like that. And he could be, but I'm uncomfortable saying that The Rock is an ENFJ yet because I don't see NI. I don't see NI from. If you guys can link me to something, go ahead and do that. But to me, I don't really like that whole idea of like, yeah, well, I'm seeing FESE, so he's just looping. And guys, that auxiliary function is still always going to show itself, and not in like a small, minute way. It's still going to be there. It's just that the looping is gonna cover it. But if you can't see that auxiliary like at all, then I feel like there's another thing there. If anything, I could actually see ESFJ for him when I listen to him and everything like that at times, because he said that one of the biggest reasons why he got into wrestling was because of his father. His father was the one who kind of like threw him into it and like was trying to get him in the gym and all of this and stuff like that. And now he's kind of like trying to carry on that tradition in a way. Another buzzword for SI. So maybe I could be wrong over there, but that's a case of argument for it, and it makes sense. So therefore we could see the top two functions FESI right there. But he doesn't seem to me like an intuitive. He doesn't. Yeah, to me he just doesn't seem like an intuitive type. For me to be able to say that he's an ENFJ strongly. And I just think that's something also that's like, yeah, he might be. Sure, he's looping, but like we're not about to like do that. So I don't know. Well, I don't see the aux type. Yep, I think yeah, you're pretty much saying exactly what I just said. I don't see the aux of the type. I think they are, so they must be looping. Alternatively, perhaps you need to consider another type. Thank you. Censors Uncensored, by the way. I really like your name because obviously you must be a censor, and you're out here representing very well. Question: what do you think about the BB8 function model? I personally feel it is detrimental to typing as people focus far too much on tricksters and such. Lovely question. Okay. I believe in BB's 8 function model. The reason why I believe in it is because I went to profiler training. I went through the profiler training courses and everything like that at Personality Hacker. I've hung out with Joel and Antonia several times, and I don't care what other people say. From being with them in real life, they are the real deal. They profile so many people. They try their best to really be as unbiased as possible. They're not afraid to say when they've gotten something wrong, and they really hone in on their craft. they reach out to people like Dario Nardi. They actually hung out with BB. They were coached by him on the 8 function model, and they actually put out a podcast on it. And then they hosted, like, just a few months ago, I think back in like September or August, they taught us the 8 function model after they were coached by BB for weeks or months. And then after that, even they were like waiting to be able to understand it for themselves. So they taught us enough in the class to be able to be like, okay, no, there's some validity here, and they were even still learning too, to the point where it's like, so there was like maybe like 50 of us in the class, and they were doing things like, okay, so this is the trickster function or whatever like that, and they explain what the archetype of that function is and what it does, and then they're like, all right, you guys are going to break out into different groups of 2 to 3, and you're all going to explain based on what type that you are, like how you relate to these functions, and then we're going to have some people share. So now we're all learning about this model as a group, and there were some really interesting insights for me to be able to be like, okay, this stuff is legit, fair. But one thing that Antonia and Joel made very, very, very clear, and they emphasized it very heavily, is we should not use the 8 function model when it comes to typing. They emphasized this very heavily. One might say, then why the heck do they teach it? I think they were just trying to get us familiar with it, something to just kind of like keep in mind, stuff like that. They'll probably have a better reason if you were to ask them, whatever. But they emphasize not to use that for profiling. And me, even as a professional profiler, I don't use that. I do not think about the shadow functions and stuff like that when it comes to profiling, because there's so much already to look at with the original 4-function stack. You have to know the facets first of that stack. If you are still thinking that TE is just all about barking orders at people and just saying like, oh yeah, this textbook says that this is what this is, so therefore that's it, and it's like mean and abrasive in that way, then you have a very limited perspective of what TE can look like. And therefore, that's why you are probably typing people in the wrong manner. And now you're succumbing to like looking at the shadow functions or whatever like that. Or if you're still limited in like, oh, SE DOMs cannot be into philosophy and a whole bunch of like other stuff, then it's like, of course you're gonna now start trying to like look at the shadow functions. Like, yeah, your shadow you're gonna try to make some type of like explanation over there. And personally, like, no offense to the people who use shadow functions for their typing, but I think that just causes more problems. I think it does more harm than it does good. That's my take on it. I think that they exist, sure, but I feel like you really need to know what you're talking about. Like, seriously, like you have to coach hundreds of people personally and understand how it really looks like for them before you can start using that to actually like profile people. That's what I think. And even then, I still don't think that you need to use it to profile people. I feel like there's enough information with that first 4-function stack. Why are we why are we now looking at all 8? That's just my opinion for right now. But I do think that it's there. Yes, high key rock videos. Yeah, I put out I don't know if you've already seen it, but I've already put out the NF's high key rock video. And I've been trying to like see like, how's that one doing? Everything like that. I haven't checked on it in a while. I should probably go check in a little bit. But I was trying to see like, because those take time, you know what I mean? And so I was like, okay, since I've started, I have to finish it. But the way that I prioritize, I guess, classic FESE, it's like, okay, what do the people want? Right now, I'm on a very big NFJ kind of thing. Like, I have my knife show, the one that I do with Joyce Mang, for those of you who don't know. If you look up NIFE show on YouTube, me and Joyce Mang, who's an INFJ, we have a separate YouTube channel where we are talking about a lot of different concepts. I come up with all of the ideas for that channel so far. We discuss it. Joyce brings lots of golden nuggets to those conversations and everything. You guys should check it out. I think the intro, the card, and the outro is pretty cool stuff. And in January, God willing, if everything goes smoothly, I'm opening up an NFJ class, kind of like a course or boot camp of some sort. So I'm really on this like NFJ kind of thing uh, that I feel like the people are really taking in. Um, but I've been looking at like how the NF's high key rock video is doing and everything like that. And if I start seeing more demand for the next high key rocks videos, then I'll prioritize it. But as of right now, it seems like there's other things I should prioritize first. Especially like for example, even like my videos on like sex and stuff like that. I've just put out like the first one a couple weeks ago or so. And now it's like, okay, I think I'm gonna go down that trail for right now too. But yes, eventually those high key rock videos, like I'll get them all out, man. Agree, he definitely seems FI inferior. Near might be INTJ though. I think that near is also an INTJ. Yes. So I think that, and yeah, that was another thing. Like when we look at near and when we look at L, they were pretty much like the same. So I feel like, yeah, they were both INTJ. And once again, Light Yagami was ENTJ. And again, that's why they seemed to be like so reciprocal of each other, because I feel like they had this like not duality, but I don't know, they connected in a way. But yeah, MLK is very much an ENFJ. That FESE was very clear in a convergent state. Very positive, clear, direct, and proactive by thank you. Like when I saw that people were like typing him as INFJ and stuff like that, like once again, it's like, okay, I get it. Stereotypes for E versus I is that unless if you're like bouncing off the rooftops and like yelling passionately and all this stuff, then there's no way that you're an introvert, And oh yeah, you're so smart and you're so this like, you can't be an extrovert because like introverts are the smart ones, they're the ones who see everything, and it's just like, bro, really? Like when you look at his life, like you look at how he was like ever since he was a kid and everything like that, it's like, nah, this guy is an extrovert. Um, the reason why this man was just so reserved and stuff, or like, to himself in that way, is because that man was tired. That man was tired. It's been reported that by the time that he died, like in his early 30s, he had the heart condition, like his heart resembled that of somebody who was in their 60s. That man was tired. He was stressed. That's why when he talked, he's like, and like it's not because he was introverted, it's because he was tired. But he definitely had a very well developed NI. And I feel like that's the thing for ENFJs. They go into jail and all of a sudden their NI starts to really bloom. Nelson Mandela, Martin Luther King Jr., shoot, even Tupac. So I don't know. Do I have to go to jail and like really come out a few years later and just change the world from there? Be forced into that cocoon? I don't want to do that, but but yes, I'm glad that you can see that like he is an ENFJ. I do believe that Gandhi is an INFJ though, and to me like that makes sense. I believe that Plato was an INFJ, the philosopher. So it's like, yeah, there's a lot of great INFJs out there, but I think that we have to categorize them appropriately so that the real INFJs can also see themselves and know, yeah. Again, my opinion. Oof, read the 6 things clickbait. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Those are fun. I should just go start disliking those. Maybe I should start posting videos like that. That'll probably get people to actually start looking past stereotypes and everything to learn. Like PDB is a hellhole. Major intuitive bias there. Yes, exactly. I'm glad that you see that too. Like, look at the actual functions that are being used. Again, it just doesn't make sense. Like that Spencer James thing, I was like, what? I know that you guys probably don't watch All American. I don't know. This is just my bias, but I feel like it's a African American show, and a lot of people that are into typology are less pigmented, and so they're not. Whenever I bring up shows that are like predominantly African American people, I seem to like get a lot of like scratching heads and stuff like that. So I understand if you haven't seen the show or whatever. But if you guys give it a chance and you check it out on Netflix, at least watch like a few episodes, I feel like you guys will be able to see what I mean by like this man is not an INFJ. Like we give so much credit to that type. Like INFJs would be the type that say like I catch everything, I see everything. Like that's what they would claim. But it's like how is that actually possible when again like your SE is inferior? That literally doesn't make sense. The types that are supposed to catch everything is the higher SE types. They catch everything, you know. So if your SE is inferior and you're always like, and you're talking about how like you're not present in the moment, then you can't also simultaneously talk about how you catch everything. That just doesn't make sense. It's not consistent. Um, but it's like it's easier for us to talk about how great an INFJ is at developing all their functions and stuff like that than maybe an ISFP would be. And I don't know. I just feel like that's not cool. I know stereotypes are dumb. Absolutely. And just like even things like also it's just toxic in general, which I feel like you're saying about like personality database. I literally made an account just to leave a very strong comment underneath the Spencer James All American thing. And it's like I had to hop off of there because I was like, you know what? If I stay on here, because then they also typed somebody who I do believe to be an ENFJ on the show as an INTJ, and I was like, oh bloody heck! Like, really? Are you guys serious? She's an Enneagram 3, but she's definitely an ENFJ. Oh, come on. Anyway, um, the most smartest and most intuitive person I know is an ESFJ. Oh, yeah, that's fascinating. Yeah, ESFJs don't sleep on their intuition. Like they see things. It's a different kind of intuition for sure, but they're out there. They be spotting stuff. Yeah, yeah. That's what I'll say for now. She's a 514. Ooh, a 5? An Enneagram 5 ESFJ. That's actually pretty dope. I'm always fascinated with my friend Stephanie, who's an Enneagram 5 ENFJ, but ESFJ Enneagram 5, that'd be pretty cool. SJs get so much love in real life, but because they're amazing. But in PDB, it's the opposite. I don't get it. Yeah, again, it's stereotypes. Like, well, I really try. Hopefully, those of you who follow me on here, like can see it. I really try to give sensors their flowers. I made that intuitive superiority video to like exemplify how like I really don't even see things as like I really try to avoid. I'm married to a sensor, so it's like yo, I can really see both sides here, and the intuitives I can honestly say are not better than sensors, and so we need to stop like pumping that because without the sensors, a lot of us intuitives that think that we're smart will find out just how dumb we are because we don't even know when to eat. We don't even know how to file taxes. like, come on, we're pretty dumb. Like she goes deeper than an INFJ. I know. Oh, yeah. I'm very. I'd very much like to see that. Not that I doubt it, but like I just, as in like, that would just be fascinating to witness. But Ted Bundy cried, so he technically isn't. He technically isn't a psychopath. Mm, so I've heard something about this too. Like he's not a psychopath, he's a sociopath, and the whole Ted Bundy thing. I just have to make like a separate video for that. Like I have Do I have it here handy? I feel like I do. I was watching the Ted Bundy tapes, um, and that's like, I've just been fascinated with him because I'm like, dude, how? Wow, I can't find it right now. Okay, well, I got this book on his life somewhere here, but I can't find it at the moment. Uh, but I do think that he is. He's one of those paths. He's a sociopathic psychopath. Either way, I just know that he was an unhealthy person, and so I just always need to preface that before I say like that I still believe that he was an ENFJ personally. So yeah, and yeah, just like what you said, like, but he still left up, like, right. I find that manipulation is a defense mechanism. I mean, it definitely can be for sure. I'm just trying to I'm trying to see like how frequently that's the case. Because I see manipulation as just moving things in the background without people knowing. So, like, for example, there is one of my top three favorite shows of all time, and it's not number three, is a show called Graceland. It's on Hulu. For those of you who are interested, you probably heard me reference it. My favorite ENTJ character of all time, and probably one of my favorite characters of all time, period, fictional characters, is a character on there called Paul Briggs. I love that show. It's 13 episodes each, 13 episodes each season, and it has 3 seasons. So you can like breeze through it. Um, in my opinion, it was a very cool show, very well written. Paul Briggs was highly manipulative, but I don't think that it was a defense mechanism. I think that is so. A lot of times, it's just a regular ENJ thing too, because it's like it's hard to explain. In order for your plan to work, unfortunately, people have to be in the dark. And I know that's very a very scary thought for a lot of people to hear me say, but like I guess that's one of my TI opinions. Sometimes, like, in order for your plan to work, like, you have to be like just in the dark. Like, some people just have to be in the dark with certain things. And I agree that it's controversial and all of that, which is, uh, Paul Briggs, like, he very heavily like explained that there's consequences that come with that. You can lose people's trust. And then sometimes it also helps you gain people's trust because it's like, whoa, yeah, Paul, he does things in a way. I don't really like how he goes about it in that way, but he gets those results. And if we just follow his plan, it'll work out. So yeah, I don't think it was a defense mechanism for him, and for a lot of other people, it probably won't be. But yes, a lot of the times for sure. Yeah, I don't manipulate because I was raised by someone who liked honesty and they weren't judgmental/harmful. That's what's up. I can't say that I never manipulated. Um, but like I said, what I will say is I really do believe that I've never, or if I have, very, very, very rarely have I manipulated with ill intent. But rather, it's kind of like I manipulate things, if anything, for the benefit of everybody else. And then I act like, what? How did this tree get over here that we are all eating from? I have no idea, and it's like, if anything, let's thank God for the tree that was grown here and produced, that we have no idea how it got here, but we're all benefiting from. Because if people might have known like the process in which I was able to get the tree to be planted there, then it raised some eyebrows, and then the whole problem with trust. And yeah, I'm probably saying too much, but even then, I've learned from that. That was like years ago, honestly, and I've become a lot more careful with stuff like that. Sometimes parents or the kids around you make you manipulative, around make you manipulative. I can definitely see that. A few people are coming to mind right now. Same. I don't want to manipulate people and almost never do, but I often find myself doing it to some small extent for like emotional validation and support. Yeah, and I mean, I don't know what I don't think I know what Myers Briggs or Enneagram type that you are, but like for example, like Enneagram twos, that's what they're known for. Like they manipulate people a lot of times, like to get love, to feel loved, and it's like they're not ill intended for that, and in fact, like their manipulation is not even necessarily like a it's not like I wouldn't feel played by them because especially like when you understand the intentions, like, oh, you just want love, like that's what it is. And for whatever reason you felt like that could be that's an example of manipulation and defense mechanism type of format. It's like I felt like I had to do these things for you to notice me and love me. And it's like, dang, well, how the freak can I be mad at you now? Like you didn't even hurt me necessarily or anything. You just orchestrated some things behind my back that to get you some more love and attention. So yeah, I get that. I just really need to get better mentally. I hope you do. I'm always up for coaching. If you ever want, uh, but if you're dealing with like mental illness or something, of course, like that, I'm not a therapist, so uh, I have to make that statement very clear that I'm not a counselor or a therapist in that sense. But the other things I'm open to. Oh, thanks, Sam. I appreciate that. I try. I try. I just honestly, as corny as it sounds, I really just try to be myself on here. Like, it's like I see the ways that it's like, oh, you could do this. So if you do this, or if you make this title, or if you stop talking about this and you start talking more about these kinds of things, you can get so many more subscribers. And it's like, I don't have FI in my immediate stack, but it just feels inauthentic to me. So I'm glad that people like y'all are actually like here, talking and stuff like that. I appreciate that. So yeah, thanks. Means a lot. Sometimes we get into certain behaviors based on what we want and how we think it's best for us. Yeah. You're probably talking to Ava, but yeah, that's pretty much like what I just said too. Whether it be personal, whether it be on a personal level, etc. I'm feeling particularly weird right now. Personality should change in movies and shows. Yeah. I feel like okay, I think you kind of just answered. You said character development. Okay, yeah, I feel like character development should happen in movies and shows for sure. But personalities, not really. So when I think of a personality type changing, I'm thinking of like the MacBook Pro that I'm using right now tomorrow or over the next few years changing into an HP uh, laptop. That's not how it works. But in 2 3 years from now, with all these iOS updates and stuff like that, yeah, my MacBook Pro is going to be doing some cooler things than it's doing right now. That's what I think is development versus changing type. Hopefully that makes sense. I'm in a terrible FISI. Oh, you're 9FP. Terrible FISI loop, like 90% of the time. Again, I can help you out with coaching. And you seem like a delightful person to talk to. So that'd be dope. I have an INFP younger sister. Uh, so, but I hope that you feel better. As a matter of fact, here's some free coaching advice for any INFPs that are watching that could be in that FISI loop thing. Usually you guys know who you are, or you believe that you do. Expand that. If you're like if you have an FISI comfortability and like moral system, it's like I just, this is who I am. I just don't want to step out of this. Throw yourself into something. Just try something. And not like just reading a book or something like that, but like try something new. Try some like throw yourself into a different culture, a different way of living for a little bit. Be not you for a little bit, which I know is like totally going against like FI Dom, but it's like try to be not you, because in being not you, what you end up being, you might find more of you. Hopefully that makes sense. Because then you'll find out more of like, this is why I don't like that. Or this is, what? I kind of did like this. And now that becomes a part of you because you're still always going to be you. Hopefully that's making sense. But yeah, I feel like that's a big thing. Like get into that NE and really just like look at ENFPs. Look at what they're doing. Like ENFPs, like they're always like just exploring all these different stuff. And then they go to their FI and they're like, okay, so of all the things that I just kind of got myself into, what do I like and what do I don't like? What resonates with me and what doesn't resonate with me? Why does it resonate with me? Kind of thing. With FI DOMs, you already have that. Like I know what resonates with me and what doesn't, kind of thing. But it's like, okay, expand that. Expand who you are. Get more information and get more experiences under your belt. That'll really help you to develop your FISI. Uh, Enneagram goes deep into play too. Always. Always. I'm an INFP, but I could beat my ESTP brother. Well, so much for stereotypes. And he is more fit, but I'm more stocky and angry. Oh, well, there you go. Anger is always a pretty strong weapon. Yeah. I can't see The Rock being a censor. Really? I mean, I'm gonna revisit. I'm gonna check him out. Link me in the comments section. Like maybe not over here, but like the actual like comments, like underneath this live stream video. Any interview or few that you've watched of him, because I'd happily claim The Rock, but like I said, like when I'm typing people, not just for ENFJs, but like any type, like I need to see the at least evidence of like the dominant and auxiliary function. I'm not about that, oh yeah, looping kind of thing, you know what I mean? And I just really don't see like NI, like auxiliary NI kind of thing. Um, but I'm still open to it because he has to be ENFJ or ESFJ at this point because I definitely see FE Dom with him from what I see so far. Exactly, Denzel. Looping exists, but people act like it's a constant character flaw. Yeah. And then, you bring in like OP's thing too, and it's like it helps also. It's like, oh, I'm just a jumper, like to my TI kind of thing. It's like, okay, well, that like people probably do have like affinity toward their TI auxiliary. I mean TI tertiary, something like that. But like just make sure that you're not neglecting that auxiliary function too. So like don't go too far in that. Me too. I have a lot of repressed anger, and I'm honestly scared of what I may be. I'm not gonna lie, y'all INFPs be scaring me. Like, I think of all of the types that I know, y'all are the least forgiving. like, like as soon as y'all get angry and resentful, it's done. Like from what I've seen, so like, I'd be really afraid. Yeah, I don't want to get on y'all's bad side. That TE grip be hitting hard. Exactly. You gotta let it out with a piece of paper. Go writing. Yeah. Go writing stuff. Everyone says that, but I just want to break some. Yo, the INFPs in this chat, y'all are making me laugh. Punch your pillow. Why sounds so true. The link works now. It's supposed to be a pic of an angry girl. All right. I'm just making sure I haven't missed anything yet. 3. not using it for typing. Oh yeah, back to the BB's model. Yeah, it's a good tool, but it messes up typing. Yeah, I agree. I feel like I profiled somebody recently, or a couple months ago, who thought they were an ESTP. I mean, thought they were an INFJ for the longest. I've always made room for the person to and believe like, hey, like they are an INFJ, but just a really interesting INFJ that's impulsive and uh, abrasive in speech and really TI heavy and very good at snowboarding and a whole bunch of other SE things. But I guess it's not impossible. Okay. But then other people started telling me that, oh, I just really don't, credible sources too. Like, I don't think that person's an INFJ. I was like, you know what? Let me just figure out once and for all. For my own TI, let me just profile them. The person's a good friend of mine too. So when I profiled them, then we came to the conclusion thankfully they were so open-minded. And they're like, we found out they're actually an ESTP. And their friends apparently were like, no, we don't buy that. We don't buy that. Because they had so much of like an intuitive bias. And it's like, I know you thought that you were an intuitive dominant, your friend was an intuitive dominant, and now you're finding out they're an intuitive inferior. But this should just go to show how much more we need to expand our view on these things. Like, why is it easier for us to believe that an INFJ can be so good at these SE things, but we can't believe that an ESTP can be good at these NI things? It goes right back to the Spencer James thing from All American. Like, why is it so easy for us to be like, yeah, the INFJ could be the star football player of the team, not just a great football player, but the star football player of the whole entire country. But no, an ISFP is not capable of caring for their community that deeply and actually being able to detect when somebody else is like having like a bad day or something like that. Miss me. I don't like that. So yeah. But the reason why I brought that story up was because that person had ended up getting typed by someone else as well, and that profiler, I respect them as a profiler, but when I heard about that session, I was like they're like the ESTP was like, yeah, the person used shadow functions, and like was like looking at my like this and that and that, and so they really think that I'm an ENTP and all of that, and I was just like, no, I think that they just have a limited view on how sensors can show up with intuition. I don't think that you're an ENTP. So I don't know. Like every type is good at what they're good at, and we have to hold space for that. Agree. I just focus on Dom, Ox, Turk. That's all you need. That's all you need. Eric Thor. You won't really notice the four shadow functions until later in life or after really long work of self-development indeed. And BB's interpretation of it is way too esoteric. There you go. There you go, guys, from Eric Thor himself, which, by the way, man, nice to see you here. I'm glad that my rambling is still, yeah. Oh, these are old, though. Sheesh. That was like 3:14 p.m. Right now it's like 3:44. I'm going to catch up, y'all, and then I'm going to hop off. But I'm glad people are still watching, so that's cool. Creed, Eric, and Dramatic. Yeah, I'm still trying to understand BB's model myself. Like, I didn't really understand how Trickster SI shows up for me, and the Demon TE, I think it was what it was. Yeah, it's like for everything I low-key had to ask Antonio, like, how does this show up for the ENFJ? Like, so it's not to say that it's wrong, but I just still don't really get it, and I feel like it's just extra to use that. And because once you bring that into profiling, now you may as well just toss the whole thing, because you can create reasoning for everybody being certain type. And after that, I'm not about to play this game with you. because it's just like, okay, well, at this point, we're not really going to agree that there's a right answer, because we can just make a case for like 5 different types that this person could be. And I'm not really interested in that. I'm just trying to really get down to like what the truth is. And if we're saying there is no truth for what type of person can be or a character could be, then miss me. I'm just going to stick to my opinion. You stick to yours, and we'll call it a day. Yeah, I mean, calling a function a demon is quite traumatic. No lies told. Knife show. Yes, the knife show. NIFE show. So if you, let me see if I can find it real quick. Put it in the, yeah, literally if you type in NIFE show on in like YouTube, then it'll show up. But I'm gonna put a link in the comments here. Okay, cool. Yes, NIFE. I think y'all like it. Like I said, I have like some really cool ideas. Me and Joyce are busy, especially Joyce. Y'all, Joyce works hard. That girl works hard. And her personal life, y'all need to give her a round of applause for real. But whenever we actually get the opportunity, we make the time to be able to hop on and talk about these different things. And I handle all of the video editing. And just like I just try my best to keep things like off of her plate. So she just has to show up and drop gems, and hop right out, and I feel like we got some good stuff on there. So definitely check it out, subscribe, help bring some more traction to it. The videos might trickle out slowly since she and I are both busy, but like when it's there, then boom. Like I think that you'll like it, especially some of the stuff that we have coming up. How about NIFI? Oh, for a moment I was like, what? Oh, INTJ. Like Wi-Fi. sounds more anti-violence. I don't think I know what's going on anymore. Is this where NE is coming into play? I'm not tracking. Off topic. Okay, so it must be NE. But Trivago sucks. OMG. Okay, I'll go back on topic. I have a feeling that INFJ Enneagram 8s are very extroverted, especially in 8 Wing 7-1. Yes, yeah, I would not be surprised by that at all. I could definitely. I don't think I know an INFJ 8, whether fictional or in real life, but I can imagine. Okay, maybe the 8 Wing 9 is a little more intro. Still extroverted, but yeah, more intro than 8 Wing 7, sure. He must have been tired. Okay, dang, what was I referencing there? Oh yes, yeah, the MLK thing. yeah, like that man was tired. Like, and imagine being a freaking FE Dom and you have to like lead all of these people, and you have your own people, like other Black people, disliked Martin Luther King Jr. and we're trying to kill him. That man was tired. And even to this day, like, okay, I do not condone cheating and all of that. But I feel like when I see people say like, yeah, we shouldn't celebrate Martin Luther King Jr. Day because he cheated on his wife. Okay, it's definitely horrible that he cheated on his wife. I'm not necessarily like dismissing that, but to say that like completely means that we should not celebrate Martin Luther King Jr. Day, what? This man did so much for us. Y'all bugging. Agreed on. I'm glad that you agree with me, Eric. Thank you. That's actually very validating for me because I see so many people just, oh, I'm glad. Gandhi, yes, was a, oh. Well, from what I heard about Gandhi, he never actually, he kind of pulled a Michael Jackson. He was practicing this thing where he was sleeping naked in bed with children. as a way of like practicing a self-control, not against his pedophilia problems that may or may not have been there, but I don't know. I made a video on that for those who might have not already known. It's called Our Heroes Are Human. I talk about Gandhi. I talk about Michael Jackson. I talk about Cosby, who that was I agree that he did some horrible stuff there, and I'm not necessarily defending him in that video, but just yeah. And then I talked about one other person, I can't remember. I think it was Martin Luther King Jr. Um, but yeah, you should check that out. I give a little bit more perspective there about Gandhi's pedo days. Yeah, yeah, like it's not anything against them, but uh, that's why like it's like I have so many African American friends who like when I even try to bring them into like the typology community or like introduce them to type, all they're seeing is just like a whole bunch of like white people names, like Taylor Swift this and like Elon Musk this, and it's just like Jordan Peterson this. Let's bring some more color into this. Which shout out to my wife who has an both a Twitter account and a Instagram account called Types in Black Ink, where she emphasizes like she has really guys, it's really good Enneagram content. Enneagram and Myers-Briggs content. Like I be looking at her, I'm like, dang girl, like you're so creative. And she works hard. But yeah, check out those pages on especially on Instagram, but on Twitter, she also has it like upcoming growing on there too. And she's just like she's going into all the different like sitcoms, so no more like Full House type stuff. I love Full House, but like let's talk about like Proud Family and Family Matters type stuff too. Like let's have some more like I made the joke one time like MBTI should stand for more black type influencers. Like it's even the playing ground here. Yeah, so true. I'm tired of the stereotype. Thank you for pointing this out. I'm not really sure which stereotype we're talking about over here because I'm about 20 minutes late, but you're welcome, Lux. Just realized the comment format on the video. Comment format? I think I missed that. Stereotypes are probably the reason why I can't seem to type myself. Oh, Caleb, you don't know what type you are? Shameless plug. If you need to type, if you need a profiling session, hit me up. DZ2blessed@icloud.com. Just tell me your just title it profiling session. Tell me your time zone and what days that you're free. We'll set something up. And I record all the sessions. It doesn't have to go on YouTube, but just so that I can send it back to you. So if you have any like questions and stuff like that, we can get you set up. Oh my gosh, it's gonna be it's gonna be a little funny. Dang, I'm sorry, y'all. I'm so late. But I'm almost caught up now. I'm almost at the bottom. I hate INFP stereotypes. I barely cry and I'm not depressed. I believe that. I believe that for you. I do know a lot of INFPs that do cry a lot and are very depressed. But just like how not every single ENFJ is just bouncing off the walls and like just, you know what I mean? Like, yeah, we need to put death to a lot of these stereotypes, or just not even put death to them, but hold a lot of like nuance, like room for the nuances. So like just because I now meet an INFP, I should not assume like, oh, they're gonna cry or stuff like that. Like I should hold room for their resilience and their strength there. So yeah. I just got here. I didn't get what's going on. Please someone tell me what's happening. I wonder if somebody told. Caleb, that's a real problem in this community. It took me forever to figure out I was an ESFP because I'm not a partying sex maniac entertainer. Hope y'all seeing this. Like, and he said he's uncensored, but he's not doing partying sex maniac entertaining stuff. So there you go. I'm confused. If I get to the end of the comments and nobody still like answered you, Jim, then I got you. Yeah, we're just different, dude. So he's doing Q&A based. There we go. One question you sent earlier. I'm always eating, and I'm an intuitive. Well, there you go, breaking stereotypes. But I'm on a keto diet, so I'm losing it up. There we go. Also breaking records out here too. Thanks. Yeah. Thanks, man, for filling him in. No H in my name. Great. Oh. Got it. Matthias. Is it Matthias or Matthias? Well, that. It's messed up. All right, let me just make sure that I'm getting to all of the questions or actual comments real quick, just so that I can make sure I'm not wasting anybody's time, since we're already almost at like 2 hours now. I also hate when people act like INFJs are the only type that can be logical and emotional, because they're like my ISFJ. Like, yeah, ISFJ exists and ENFP. Ava, yes. Like, that is not the perfect function stack. Come on. Oh, man. Like, and once again, I really need to emphasize, like, I actually feel bad because I feel like I talk about this INFJ stuff all the time. And I always have to remind people, like, no, I really do love INFJs, but I hate the people who think that they're INFJs that are not. I don't really hate them as people, but I just hate that they think that they are. You guys get what I mean. And I hate the problems and misinformation that it causes, because it just again, it causes a whole domino effect. So yeah, I'm with you there. I actually relate more to being a thinker than a feeler in many ways because of the FI. I can definitely see that. I know a lot of ESFPs who actually look a lot like ENTJs for that reason. So I get that. Are you going to record this? I want to watch the rest later. Yeah, I got y'all. Yeah, I'm going to, like, when I end the broadcast, then it should still be available for y'all to be able to watch. So you have that nice, kind manipulation. No, I try. I definitely do. Or is it? Guess you'd never know, huh? Nah, seriously, the people who know me in real life, like my wife, she'll vouch for me. Like, I think I'm pretty trustworthy when it comes to that. And yeah, I try also now, like, to do better with being straightforward and like honest with whatever's going on. So yeah. My ESFJ mother-in-law does that. The beautiful and kind manipulation to get the best outcome so people feel loved. She's best. Yes, thank you. Yeah, manipulation is not always, in my opinion, a bad thing, but it's just unfortunate. It really is. It's unfortunate that sometimes, in order for something to work, people have to be left in the dark, even if it's for their own good. Did anyone know any unhealthy INFJ characters? Well, actually, I'm pretty sure. Hold on. I have like a whole little list on my phone of various types. None that are coming to mind like off the top of my head, but let me just check real quick. Sheesh, right? Okay. I feel like Jean Grey from the movies, she was like low key and unhealthy INFJ. From X-Men Apocalypse and especially Dark Phoenix. I feel like she could be an example of one. Wow. Yeah, I don't really see too much. Oh, Pooh Lang from Blood and Water, another show that potentially the less pigmented are not familiar with. But I highly recommend regardless. Um, I think it's a great show. It's on Netflix. I think it's 2 seasons out so far. It's an African show, but like it's English, but it takes place in South Africa. Um, the main character on that show, I believe, is an INFJ5. I wouldn't venture as far as to say that she is like I mean, I think that yeah, I feel like she is like low key unhealthy. Yes, like she has like a very unhealthy like family dynamic. You guys should just check it out. I say check it out. That could be like one example. Known ESFJ type 2 who manipulates through guilt, tripping, and going with the whole after everything I've done for you. This is the things like yeah, that's the 2 going to 8. That's actually one of the ways how I knew that I was like, oh, I don't think I'm a 2. Because number one, I don't necessarily struggle with the idea of people loving me. Like that's the big thing for 2s. It's like they feel like they're not loved. I know that I'm loved. I just feel like I'm forgettable, which is more of a 9 thing. And I have to integrate to 3 so that I can become more appealing and feel more memorable. Um, but I also don't go to that like 8 where it's like after all I've done for you, like and like kind of like go off in that way. Instead I go to the 6. And like that's for sure there. So yeah, but yeah, Enneagram, it's the one thing that'll definitely make you feel like a horrible person. I wanted to write a character based off that of an unhealthy INFJ. Well, I can tell you guys a quick story. I know of a person who pretty much wrote a book because so this person is an INFJ and they wanted to explore racism. They're white, and so they thought it would be a good idea to explore why do white people cling on to racism so much. Let me write a book where the main character is a white person who owns a slave, but an imaginary slave. And apparently that book was very controversial. And it's like I get what they were trying to do. They were really in that NITI. And you can still see the FE was there because they were trying to make this book to maybe like help people or to like have the FE. Like they were kind of like cheating in a way where it's like, yeah, let me just run a simulation with my FE. Like if I create characters from my own mind and have them interact with each other, then maybe the answer will bubble up and I'll have this NI epiphany of why white people cling so heavily to racism and slavery. And it's like, no, how about you go into the FESE of actually going to talk to people? Like, go an extrovert, have conversations, and then your NITI will be able to actually hone in and be able to gather more information. I feel like that's probably an example of an unhealthy INFJ. Still, you could see that there was FE there. Once again, even though they were looping in that NITI, like I just need to figure everything out in my own head. I'm not going to extrovert. I'm not going to spend time with people. At the end of the day, they still were, uh, yeah, they still like had FE intentions there, and you could still see enough of the FE there, but it just wasn't being used enough. Uh, so yeah, that could be an example. And I mean, that's how I feel about INFJs. Every type in general, like the INFJs who be like, yeah, my FE is just so tiring, and I just don't like to use it. It's like, all right, that's fine. Like if I'm coaching them, I'll tell them like that's fine, but just so you know, I won't trust your NI insights then. Just like I wouldn't trust an ENFJ who complains about their NI. Like those two top functions, they got to work together. So, yeah, the more that you're using your auxiliary function, the stronger your dominant function is going to be. That's how I feel like. I found that ENFJ. I found that I was an ENFJ a couple days ago, and I'm a 4-ring-3. Ooh, an ENFJ 4. Those are uncommon from my experience at least. So, and it makes sense how I see social situations and the like. I'm most prone to absorbing people's emotions and getting them mixed. Ah, Are you relating that back to the four, or are you just saying like in general? Because yeah, like that's a ENFJ thing. Like yes, we definitely just like no matter what enneagram type you are, like you're absorbing the emotions and probably getting them in the mix. But if you were just stating the 4-1-3 thing, like just as like a side note, then yeah, oh, that's cool. I would love to like know more about. I think I only know one other ENFJ four, and I believe that she could be a social sexual or sexual social. Uh, but yeah, it's a very intriguing combination to see. For real, son. Denzel was a critical person in my initial dive into. Yo, I freaking love y'all. Thanks. I really appreciate it. Seriously, like y'all are awesome. This is really encouraging for me. That's a cute way of manipulating Ava. I definitely missed that. Like I'd be like, "Oh, you just want some rub?" Yeah, yeah. Oh, okay. Now I'm caught up. Yeah, exactly. That's how I'd be too. I'd fall in for that. No, I meant character development when I said personality changing. Okay, cool. So we're on the same page there. Yeah, exactly. Uh, I would morph into an ENFJ if I could, but therapy helped me realize I cannot become an extrovert. Yeah, we like you as an INFP, okay? And like, we need y'all in this world. So definitely don't try to morph into an ENFJ. That'd actually be very unhealthy for you because we're like your shadow. Um, I know I definitely should not morph into an INFP, but I'm glad that at least you know that you shouldn't do that. And at the end of the day, even though you're not necessarily an extrovert, I feel like as long as you know how to use your functions appropriately, you're good. You know what I'm saying? So, and I feel like, I mean, you've been following me for years on here, and from the times that we've interacted and stuff like that, I'd like to think that yeah, like you're pretty on par with how you're using your functions. So, who needs to be an extrovert when you got that going on? You know what I'm saying? So, I'm an INFP in 4-3, but I disintegrate into two often to answer your question. Ah, that makes sense. That makes sense. Oh man, the four is going to two. I see that a lot. Yeah, it happens. I feel you. Yes, that is great. I had a similar realization with therapy. Oh, you're an Enneagram 9. I don't think I knew that part. Or maybe I did, but I forgot. Trash aside. I don't know. But okay. An INFP 9. Oh, so then you're like my sister. That's cool. My sister is an INFP. Enneagram 9, self-preservation, social, I believe. I think so. Oh, stop. I appreciate that. I mean, being in my own head was a disastrous for me. I need to get out and go. But I find that a lot of creepy people are unhealthy 1-2s. I don't think I've noticed that pattern, but maybe. I mean, Joe from you, he's creepy, but he's an Enneagram 5. So, but I guess it depends on what you mean by creepy. Um, yeah. Have you heard Mariah Carey's mother? Of Mariah Carey's mother, she is weird. She's a nice. Oh yeah, I'm not familiar with Mariah Carey's mom, but now you've you've tapped on my curiosity, so I'm definitely gonna try to check that out, and perhaps I'll get back to you on that. What? I forgive too easily. Well, that's the first because the INFPs that I know, nah. And Joyce even had a panel with INFPs, and they were talking about that. They were talking about how like no, we hold grudges. It makes sense that FISI. It's like the FI is like this is how this thing affected me, and then the SI is like, I'm going to hold on to this memory. And then what I've noticed too is that the extroverted intuition auxiliary can sometimes warp the memories. So even if it was originally a good memory, it's kind of like what's coming to mind is like if you've watched the movie Inside Out, where sadness would like touch certain things or like something, and then all of a sudden the emotion would turn like sad and stuff. It's like you touch that memory, the enemy will touch that memory, and it'll taint that memory from a good one to a bad one. And then it's like you almost can't even blame the INFP, because it's like that's the functions that they've been gifted with, but it's like, dang, like you just recreated this whole scenario, that whole memory, into something like tragic that you once used to see as beautiful, and you're holding on to that. um yeah, but I'm glad that you are not like that. Maybe it's the Enneagram 9, who knows. There you go. When someone hurts me, I don't forgive. See, y'all are. I be being careful with y'all for real, like, because I don't have time. I don't. I'm an FE Dom Enneagram 9. I'm not trying to. I just want to get along with people, you know. Kind of random, but it's glad to know I'm not the only person into typology. Thanks for the FISI loop advice, brother. Yeah, you're absolutely welcome. Thanks for coming on, all of y'all. Like, I really appreciate it. I haven't done a live stream in a very long time, so, and I know that a lot of times it takes me a while to answer a lot of your comments. So I'm glad that I'm giving you all the opportunity to ask questions on like just about anything right now. And I'll do these a lot more. I'll do these like a lot more every now and then, at least like once or twice a month, maybe, just to touch base with y'all. Especially now that I have StreamYard and everything, so I may as well make use of it. Sensors on such a, it was a ESFP. I totally get what you mean by being in your head too much. Hey, yes, FE, my FE is happy. I'm loving the connections. INFP is not being forgiving. How hilarious, accurate with the INFP. There we go, more proof. Like, I'm not into typology anymore, but Denzel is super cool once. Yo, y'all are, I love it. I love it. I'm not even gonna front, you know. As an Enneagram 9 and as an ENFJ, it's just like, wow, I'm out here actually meaning something to people. That's nice. Sometimes stay. Sorry, and say that I'm glad I'm not the only Black person into. Oh, Ava, you a sister? Oh, that's what's up. I'm glad too. We need to connect. You should email me sometime. Discourse. I'm loving it. As a younger INFP, I could hold a mean grudge. There it is. I took pride in it. Like, who does that? Yo, y'all is scary. That's crazy. I tried to hold a grudge. I can't even do that. My wife actually like laughs at me because of that. She's like, Denzel, like, I low-key like pity you, because people will do the most heinous things to me, and then I will find it in my heart to still forgive them, or I'll even like forget. I think it's like the SI blindness or whatever. It's like I just forget, like, even what they did. I'm like, oh yeah, that person did do that, didn't they? I just knew that we had a falling out, but man. Then realize it just makes me unhappy, and start focusing on the positive and how God forgives. Forgive others as quickly as you'd like God to forgive you. That's the saying. That's a mature INFP over there. Y'all learn from her. I mean, you know, don't get mad at me if you choose not to. You know, you do what you want, but no, sometimes it's good to hold on to your hurt. Goob from the show, or from the movie Meet the Robinsons. That's pretty much, I believe that he was an INFP, and I feel like that's exactly what he did too. He's like, they're gonna tell you to do this, they're gonna tell you to do that, never let it go. And it's like, bro, that's not good. Because they could do it again. I feel like you can keep it in mind, but you don't have to hold on to it, you know what I'm saying? And like hold that type of like resentment, especially if people are remorseful. Forgive the people who are at least like remorseful, you know what I'm saying? But like, yeah. Anyway, I'm about to wrap this up because we hit the 2 hour mark. So let me just give y'all a moment of silence to make sure I'm all caught up. I enjoyed it rambling. Thanks, Eric. I appreciated you being here. I wasn't expecting that. That's what's up. And I hope that everything's going all right with your new type discovery going on and stuff like that, man. Explanation two. That's what I said it was detrimental. Okay, is Hitler really an INFJ or an INTJ? Okay. Okay. So I I still need to look into Hitler a little bit more to be able to really confirm, because I know that the classic thing everyone keeps on saying is that he's an INFJ, but I've heard from very credible sources that he could have actually been an ISFP. And yeah, and it's a very interesting thing that I want to like look into. I don't buy it just yet, but maybe. But yeah, I do think that he was an introvert. Like, there's people who have tried to like say that, oh, probably like an ENFJ. I don't think so. I think that he is an introvert that just tried to like, you know, yeah. Who cares if he? Yeah, like once again, I'm not condoning Martin Luther King Jr.'s cheating, but I just feel like for all the good that he's done, it's not that once again he has an excuse to cheat. I just feel like these are very separate things. Like, we're celebrating the fact that this man helped bring two nations together in a way. And he really helped dilute and try to destroy a lot of hatred in our society. So for that, let's celebrate that and him for that reason. He gave his life for this cause, and not necessarily overlook the cheating, but just kind of throw that into his story. Like, hey, he was a flawed man. That's just pretty much what it was. What if MLK was a pedophile? That would be, that would also be, again, horrible. Just like the cheating thing. Like, that's messed up. Probably even worse than the cheating thing, actually. It'd be really messed up, especially if he was married and he was doing that. That's wow, that'd be totally messed up. But I don't know. I feel like I can just hold things separately. That's how I feel. It's like I just forever will need to be grateful for the fact that he gave his life for this. So yeah. Read to title. Typology used to cause me to question if my behaviors are normal in relation to my MBTI type. I created my prison by keep searching what other people of my type did. Ah, yeah, yeah, yeah. That's a big thing. Like, we need to, again, don't try to box yourself into that type, because we're supposed to be teaching type to be flexible to us, not us being flexible into typology. So just because you're FE Dom does not mean that it's like, oh, so I shouldn't value authenticity and I have no incapability of doing that. That's definitely not true. Um, yeah, whatever type you are, you're still that type. You know what I mean? So it's a tricky line between like knowing like what actually consists of somebody's type versus also uh what are, like, the nuances, because some people, they'll be a whole ENFP, and they're forcing their way into the INFJ box or something like that, and it's like, no, there's nothing wrong with ENFPs. Like, it's just that you're not an INFJ. Like, that's just what it is. But if you are an INFJ that's just like weird in this way, then okay, cool. So I'm glad that a lot of y'all are agreeing with that. That's why I mistyped as an INFJ for so long, because I'm organized and do things for people. See? But you got to know these functions. Like when you see that you're an FI Dom and you can value this and this is that, and like the facets of these functions, then these things don't. You're seeing the nuance of not only type, but of people as well. And then you don't feel as boxed in because you can see how several people are using these same exact functions and the same exact function stack, yet they're using it in different ways. So not every SE DOM is going to be as good at bungee jumping and stuff like that. But that SE DOM might be very good with getting into action or seeing things just objectively for what they are. Maybe even having an affinity towards style and stuff like that. Like SE comes out in different ways, and there's just different facets for every single function. So you gotta be careful of that. I'm writing a whole document about that. Actually, I might make a video about that one day. All the different facets of each function, just so that y'all can like keep that in mind. Why would he need to control himself when sleeping with the kid? Super sus. Yeah, but he still did a lot of helpful things for India. Right. Yeah, exactly. But yes, I agree. Like, I put the article in that Our Heroes Are Human video link thing. So if you guys want, you can go and check that out. And yeah, because I feel like there was more to it that made sense that I'm just forgetting right now because that was years ago. But it's still weird either way. Jamila is awesome. I really enjoyed talking with her on the ESFP ISFP panel on Joyce's channel. Yes, Jamila is just, she's lovely. Jamila is absolutely incredible. You guys have no idea. She is, and for a censor, she can keep up. Like, don't sleep on her. She's tapped into that intuition, but her SE is definitely above that intuition too. So a lot of times, even it's not even that, oh, you're bad at your intuitive function. It's just that you're better at your sensing function. Just like maybe you're not bad at your sensing function as an intuitive, but it's just that you're better with your intuitive function. Preferences, right hand versus left hand. So, but yes, Jamila's a literal angel that just floats around the apartment singing. And again, even after learning functions, I still typed at 9FJ since I use NITI comfortably for 9FP. That's interesting. I mean, since I don't really know you personally, then I can't really like say anything about that. Like, but I am curious as to like what you'd mean by like how would you describe using NI and TI well? I do not watch too much basketball, but I do watch it when it's on. Like if it's there, then I do enjoy watching it. One of my favorite movies of all time is Like Mike. I was Calvin Cambridge for Halloween this year. So yeah, I dabble. I dribble and dabble a little bit. First one was right. Okay, so Matthias. Got it. All right. Why do people have to be left in the dark? Can you give an example? Okay. Crap. I'm trying to think of an example just off the top of my head. I wish I'd saw this comment earlier. So I'm really trying not to let this be like too long. Give me a moment. Man, okay. I will probably make a video about this. I'm writing that down. Yeah. I'm gonna make a video about manipulation. So just see this. I have a whole bunch of checklist stuff for all the videos I plan to do. So they're on the way, and then I have a separate one for the knife show. So yeah, I'm gonna make a video on manipulation, and I will answer your question, Venus. Comment underneath this video so that when I do drop that video, I can like comment on your comment and link you to it. But for now, until I make that video, I say watch Graceland if you have access to Hulu. And I would love to hear your thoughts about that character, Paul Briggs, or even the Blacklist. Blacklist, if you watch the Blacklist, um, a more popular show than Graceland, Raymond Reddington. I feel like I believe that he's an ENFJ and he kept the task force in the dark a lot. But he knew that if he told them certain things, then they would either have to go with certain protocols or they wouldn't trust him. Like sometimes it's like if you tell somebody like, hey, this is what's going to happen and blah blah, then you get hit with the, but how do you know that's gonna happen? And they're just giving you all of these like doubts and like skepticism that it's like, okay, literally the only way that I can prove to you that this plan is going to work is by executing the plan, because it's better to be able to say, hey, I knew this was going to happen all along. I told you so, rather than trying to persuade somebody, like, just go along with this plan. I guarantee you it's going to work. So hopefully like that makes sense. Because then after that, then people start to see like, okay, wow, you were behind those past 5 things. Yeah, you're right. I wouldn't have trusted you. But now that I've seen, I was kind of like forced to see just how good you are at this. I guess I can trust you. And now with certain people, I'm able to just tell them straight up because they've seen my track record. So yeah, definitely relate to feeling like I'm forgettable too. Oh, are you an Enneagram 9? Man, that forgettable thing hits home. Y'all have no clue. I've been thinking about that a lot recently, but I'm not about to, cry on live right now. You know what I'm saying? How much are your sessions usually? I've been type as INFJ, but not sure. So for a full profiling session from me, it's $100. And we can do, payment plan, whatnot. But yeah, it pretty much includes, and I have examples of my profiling sessions on my channel in case if you haven't seen them. But I record the whole session, sit down with you, I ask you a whole series of questions. At the end, I'm able to tell you, like, this is what type I believe that you are, and this is why I believe that you are the type that you are. And then we go through the verification process where it's like, okay, did I misunderstand you at this part? Like, does this resonate? Because I'm all about just getting the accurate type. If you haven't been listening to me for the past 2 hours, like, I'm not about enforcing a type on you. I'm more about like making sure that I give you the information correctly. I listen to you carefully so that we're able to come up with like, okay, this is what type that best fits you, and this is why, based off of your own emission. So yeah, $100. And yeah, if you're trying to verify if you're an INFJ or if you are, just wanting like more proof, like I said, I record them. So I could give you even like more reasoning as to why you're an INFJ if that's what you end up being. Because going into the session, I throw away everything. Like there's people that sometimes come to me and they'll be like, yeah, I'm going between INFJ and INFP. And then next thing you know, it's like, no, you're actually an ENFJ. And this is why. And it's like, whoa. When I was getting Enneagram typed, I was going between Enneagram 3 and Enneagram 2. I believed that I was a 2. And people online believed that I was like a 3 or something. And I'm like, but like, I'm trying to be honest with myself. I go over to the Enneagram profiler and she's like, you're not a 2 or a 3, you're a 9. I'm like, huh. So yeah. Do you think Joe's an INTJ? Yeah, no. I think that Joe's an ISTP, sexual 5. I actually talked about that toward the beginning of this live stream. I know that you probably just joined, so you can rewatch afterwards if you want and just kind of like skip to that part. But yeah, I think that he's an ISTP, Enneagram Sexual 5, and I just see a lot of TISE with that guy. Okay, so if you want to learn Spanish, go to Latin America and live there. Make it a promise. I do want to learn Spanish. I can't promise that I'm going to live there because I take promises very, very, very seriously. But yeah, sure. I could slide by Latin America sometime. Is it an ISFP thing to not answer questions and get mad at people for asking them? Because my brother does that and he gets so mad at me, and I get so mad when he doesn't answer. I could see that being a thing. Yes. Um, I don't. I think that ISFPs a lot of times more than a lot of other types, they just don't like talking seriously. And so, yeah, I could see that definitely being a thing. Um, you're probably not already here to hear me say bye, but bye, Matthias. And I think I'm actually toward the end of these questions. Yeah. So yeah, we're about to hop off now too. Cool. I was aiming for 2:15 being like the end, but so yeah, this is about right. I can't tell if I use NE or NI. What are some obvious differences between the two? Okay, so just right off the top of the cuff without a full-on profiling session, NE is very good at being able to like, it uses a whole bunch of like different. NE has way more fun being on the plane and exploring all of the different possibilities of what could be, whereas NI is more focused on what actually is and finding the X marks the spot. So if we're on a plane and we're trying to search for truth or what is most likely or whatever it might be, then if the NI user will see the X and be like, hey, let's get down there. There goes the X, and let's start digging. But then the NE user is like, oh, but we're having so much fun flying and thinking of all the different possibilities. And the NI user is like, right, but the real fun is going to happen once we start digging into what actually might be the truth. And the NE user is like, but that's not really fun. Like, because then we'll know what the truth is. Oh, how about we just keep on flying and exploring, and then kind of goes back and forth like that. That's just one facet. There's a lot of different other things that come with like NE. Like for example, NE users often love to brainstorm. Like they get excited when people are like coming up with several ideas around them and stuff like that, and they're able to engage with that. NI users, I've seen a pattern that they actually get drained by stuff like that. And that's kind of what we were also taught in profiling classes as well. So that's just one example, or a couple. No doubt ISFPs are so disregarded for that. Oh, heavily. Oh my gosh, man. Like, do you see Michael Jackson's symbolism in his music videos and lyrics? Because I see people disagree about it, and I'm curious what your opinion is. Yeah. So yeah, Joe, I think that he's an ISTP. Definitely not an INFJ or an INTJ or an INFP. I could see why people would think INFJ, but no. I mean, I can see why people would also think an INTJ because ISTPs and INTJs tend to get confused for each other, but Also, I have an ENFJ best friend, and you remind me so much of him. So similar. Hey, maybe he could be in one of the future videos that I have. Facial expressions and everything is crazy. We are known for that. Take an example of me using NIs having seemingly random insights and hunches about things and thinking of random scenarios, desires in my head, and having them come true. I could see that also just being NE though, especially like the random scenarios and stuff like that, like in your head. Like, yeah, I mean, once again, it could be NI. You know, I do believe that we use all 8 functions. Just we have the preference for the top 4, and those are the ones that are most prominent in our lives. So it could be NI, but when I've spoken to a lot of NE users who say they use NI, oftentimes I actually see they're actually talking about NE. And then when I start to really explain like NI to them, like how it's like for them, then they're like, oh, and it's like, yeah. So, but NE has an aspect of that too, because they're both covering intuition, like the grounds of intuition. You know what I'm saying? So, yeah. For TI, I tend to logically detach, theorize, and analyze situations to fit my own internal framework, but that usually goes hand in hand with my Dom, I find. That, yeah, I could see that being, yeah, actual TI. Like, what is your actual opinion on things aside from what everybody else thinks? So that's a really big TI thing. And like, it has nothing to do with values. It has nothing to do with, you know, what people think. It's just, what do you think, regardless of the influence of other people, kind of thing. And is it logically consistent? So yeah. And so I thought you were going to make a simple book for kids, explain the MBTI, and have Jamila draw characters. Where is it? That's not a bad idea. You probably have already presented this idea to me, but I mean, yeah, I could probably do that. Uh, that'd be fun. Uh, Hair, sorry. uh, yeah, I might have my friend David draw it though. This was brilliant. Thank you. Really made my day go faster at work. I'm glad. Thanks to all of y'all for showing up today. Have I gotten everything so far? Yeah, for sure. You're absolutely welcome. Um, My SFP is how I knew I was mistyped as one. Led me to yes. Nice. NI is a hard function to understand. It's honestly is. It's every time it comes to explaining NI out of all of the functions, that's the one that I'm like, okay. Because it's like, yeah. So yeah. Find SI harder to understand. I still can't grasp what it really is. Agreed. Even though SI is easier for me to explain, it's harder for me to understand. NI is easiest for me to understand because I use NI, but it's like we were doing exercises at profiler training. This is my last story, and then I'm gonna hop off. Sorry, Ron. You said that you just came here. Unfortunately, hopefully you can catch up after I end the broadcast soon. But yeah, so for profiler training with Personality Hacker, they do these things where you get to embody each function, right? And one of the things that they were trying to get us to do was embody SI. So for SI, they asked us, and I might butcher this a little bit, but they pretty much asked everybody in the room, regardless of what type that you are, to reflect back on a memory that you have. And oh yeah, so reflect back on a memory and then look at the details of that memory or something like that. And I forgot where it came from. Pretty much, long story short, instead of SIing, I ended up NIing. I was not able to recall a memory. Instead, I recalled a dream. And then I pretty much had to use the dream to do what they were trying to get me to do with SI. And yeah, I'm just really bad with SI, y'all. So it's definitely something that like I can't really like use or like do, but I can explain it. Whereas like with NI, it's hard to explain, but I understand it very deeply. Um, yeah. All right. And with all of that being said, thanks y'all so much for tuning in today. Thanks for all the questions. Y'all actually made this like really fun. Every time I do these, I'm wondering like how many people are gonna actually show up and stuff like that. But yeah, I appreciate y'all hanging out with me for the past over 2 hours. It means a lot. I appreciate y'all being subscribers of mine. Seriously, it means a lot. I don't take it for granted. And be sure to leave comments for like any upcoming videos that you might want to see, stuff like that. I like to hear what y'all want to see. Y'all give me the ideas and I try to like bring them into fruition. You know what I'm saying? I'm a man of the people. But also just be looking forward to more videos that are coming out. I'm going to be having some more live streams as well. And and Saturday, the ENFJ Slumber Party. If you haven't seen the ENFJ Sausage Party yet, you need to check that out. 5 ENFJ men, including myself, answering 7 questions. The ENFJ Slumber Party was 4 ENFJ women. It's coming out on Saturday, but the sneak peek dropped last night if you want to check that out. And they were awesome. It was supposed to be 6, but 2 of them couldn't make it last minute. Yeah, but we're gonna have more of those like soon. Just since y'all made it this far, y'all get the inside scoop. I'm gonna have either 3 and 3, like ENFJ men and ENFJ women. I don't know what I'm gonna call that yet. I made like a joke. maybe I shouldn't say the joke here. Let your imagination do whatever it's gonna do. I was looking for a synonym for what I was thinking to use, but yeah. But I'm gonna find a title for that video. But yeah, that's gonna come out eventually soon too. Like I'm just like, creating a whole bunch of stuff, and I'm gonna weave in INFJs with there soon, and we'll see where all of this goes. And then, like I said, the NFJ class is coming out God willing, in January. I'm just trying to make sure I got all the legal stuff going in. And the idea would probably be paying a certain amount. It's kind of like a subscription for those who can't really do like the coaching, like the one-on-one coaching. Now it's kind of like a group coaching for NFJs. And it's a subscription where you get to like hang out and you get to pay, you get to pay this amount of money each month, and that'll give you access to the classes. And if you didn't get to make it to the class, it's going to be like 10, maybe 5 to 10 classes per month. Kind of like here on StreamYard and everything. And if you couldn't make it to any of the classes, then you'll still have access to the recordings that I'll put on YouTube, but only people who are in the class will be able to see it. And who pay their monthly subscription, because a brother got to feed his family, you know what I'm saying? So yeah, anyway, thanks again for joining and listening to me ramble and all of that. Appreciate all of y'all. And I get everything. All right. Yeah. Done.